Well, welcome to Talk of the 10th. I'm Amanda Mays Bledsoe, and we're out here on Harrisburg Road talking about one thing that you care about, and that's traffic. Since before I was a council member, I too sat at a number of intersections in Beaumont and thought, good gracious, surely there's something we can do to make this a better experience for the driver. So when I got elected, I sat down with a number of people from traffic engineering and said, what can we do to make this a better experience for those coming to work in Beaumont and are trying to get back home, and those who live in this area and trying to get in and out to do shopping and visit restaurants and do just normal day-to-day activities. And what I found is it's not as always easy as you think it would be. In fact, if there were a silver bullet, trust me, we would have done it by now. One of the things you may not realize is that this Harrisburg Road isn't a city road, it's a state road, as is Parker's Mill. And the District 7 has to be involved in all those conversations about what may or may not happen that touches Harrisburg Road. So it wasn't just as easy as sitting down with the city to figure out solutions. We had to bring in District 7 as well. And the more conversations we had, the more we realized how complicated it really is. You know, for every action, there's a reaction. Once you do a little bit of signal timing on this light, you affect the 60,000 cars driving to and from Harrisburg Road. In fact, there are over 120,000 cars on New Circle Road at any given time, which means that it's not as easy as we want it to be. So I am so grateful that we have spent the last year really looking at not just what can we do to improve traffic, but what can we do with the entire area. And one of the ways we did it was we hired an outside consultant to sit down with us and really take an outside view and looked at everything from Pasadena and Alexandria Drive all the way down to Fort Harrods and the Wellington area, and to figure what can we do to really make it easier to move around Beaumont traffic. As you know, it's not just myself that had ideas about Beaumont traffic, but you have quite a few as well. And many of you would write in and say, hey, why don't we just do this or that? And as you know, some of those ideas are pretty expensive. And so one of the things we wanted to look at with this Beaumont traffic study is how to do the wisest use of your tax dollars. What are some short-term solutions? What are some inexpensive solutions that have a really big impact? And what are things that are really expensive that maybe not have as much of an impact as you or I might think they would? And that's why we worked with the Division of Traffic Engineering and hired an outside consultant to help. So I'm here with David Flantry from the Lexington Division of Traffic. Thank you for being here.
Not a problem. Glad you have me.
And one of the things we did is worked with you to hire an outside consultant. So would you just kind of walk us through what the consultant looked at with you?
Absolutely. One of the consultant we hired actually was Stantec, who their home, one of their major headquarters is actually in Beaumont Center itself. So they have an invested interest in what occurs in the study. But what they did is kind of like tackling any good problem. They kind of first get a good picture of what we're looking at, what the existing conditions are. So they went through a lot of different data. So that included collision histories, vehicular ped counts. So throughout the development and our surrounding. So that's where they began, and that gave them a good idea of where the issues were and what solutions to come up with.
Fantastic. I know we did a lot of traffic analysis. They looked at a lot of data points that way, and then we did a lot of community input this time, mostly from our office and from you all.
Absolutely. That's one of the things. Again, as you were kind of speaking to, good use of tax dollars instead of having the outside consultants do all the community involvement, which is probably more typical. Your counselor, yourself, Counselor Jamie Rogers, and myself kind of spearheaded the community involvement when we got a huge interest, as is not unexpected. But I think we had over 1,000 responders to a questionnaire. We had multiple public events both before and after the study, and I think that helps to not just to know the pulse of what the citizens are experiencing, but B, to also give them insight and buy-in to what's actually occurring.
Absolutely. I know I had asked at one point, what's a good analysis for a survey? How many we need? And someone said, we need at least 200 good survey responses, and having 1,300 was far and above, which shows how much interest and passion there is about people who care about this area, and maybe some frustration. And
absolutely.
At least people had the chance to write in and say, here's what I'm experiencing. I know people often say those closest to the problem have the best solutions. So hearing from everybody out there about what they see and what they feel and what they experience is really important. So after we took all that information, what are some of the things that came out of that survey response that was interesting or surprising?
Well, one of the most surprising things is kind of what people agree and disagree upon as far as what the solutions could be. So a lot of our most popular solutions that had been proposed or maybe the least popular as well. So it's a little bit, you see kind of what different ways people have as to what solutions there could be. Some of the things that people all agreed on was maybe trying new signal timing parameters. So us in traffic engineering, as we can try these things, and the balance out here is there's so many different demands in so many different directions, is trying to get the optimal balance of when you're going home from downtown not being delayed too much, but also when you're coming out of Beaumont Center not being delayed too much. So we're still working on different plans that will balance those two needs. Some of the other more long-term solutions are realignment of both the major two exits, so Fort Harrods Drive and Beaumont Center Lane. Those maybe reconstructing those or realigning those to provide more space or ability to serve that demand. Internally, improving pedestrian access, building out bike trails, and creating a bit more access, such as that to improve people's options. And thus, when you improve options, you dilute their any one option, so it becomes a little easier on everybody.
It's true. One of the things that I noticed in the survey was people's level of frustration with other drivers. Mm-hmm. You know, it wasn't so much that it wasn't working, but it was, man, this car in front of me is not being a nice mm-hmm. driver, if you will, and is blocking the intersection or taking too much advantage of a right turn only or those kind of things.
Exactly. And one of the things that occurred, especially the last 25 years of the 20th century, was access management was maybe not quite as what it needs to be. And so that was another solution we looked at, is controlling how people access things, and hopefully that will limit blocking the intersection. Fieldstone Way, one of the biggest complaints was that just people block the intersection. Not necessarily that it took all that long to get through, which sometimes it can, but that just people blocking an intersection. So one of the things we also solutions proposed was limiting how people move through that intersection, that hopefully that can be a greater benefit to that intersection and that Beaumont Center Parkway as a whole.
It's true, and we've talked a lot about this intersection, but the one at Pasadena and Alexandria is another one where people say, you know, I'm driving on Pasadena to try and turn left, and someone from Alexandria, they're blocking up that area, mm-hmm. so I sit and wait. And that's a culture thing I've noticed. And we've put police out there to remind people not mm-hmm. to block intersections or not to crowd, but it's hard. That's kind of culture in Lexington, unfortunately.
Absolutely, and that's something we hope to work on as well. There's a lot of different things that the citizens can do as well, so such as altered schedule of time coming into work. If they have the ability to maybe come in earlier or later, that can also impact how quickly you can get in and out of Beaumont Center. So say if you come in at 7 or 9 a.m. or leave at 4 or 6, it might be a more enjoyable commute. Exactly,
and one of the things that we are looking for is really increased safety. I mean, the Double Diamond was one of the most certainly fatality, mm-hmm. High fatality, high injury accident intersections, which is now the Double Diamond dropped significantly, mm-hmm. which is good. And now we're experiencing sometimes those other fatalities or other injuries on other intersections. Mm-hmm. So we're looking at safety is a really big concern for some of this.
Absolutely, and one of the intersections in the study area actually was selected by the Transportation Cabinet, their HSIP, so Highway Safety Improvement Program. Mm-hmm. Fort Harrods Drive and Harrodsburg Road will be receiving federal funding, so it'll be audited and examined by the state transportation officials and city officials for what improvements could help reduce collisions of all types.
That's exactly right, and there are over 50 recommendations in the Beaumont traffic study, which is quite a few. We are not going to go over all of them with you today. What you can do is go to the MPO website. We're going to put it here on the screen for you to look at. You can click on that website and look at the entire study, all the variety of recommendations, and there are many. And one of the things that David mentioned here was that we have some that are short-term and some that are long-term solutions. And the long-term solutions sometimes are the most costly. And what's interesting, because this is a state road and has a variety of different entities and jurisdictions, if you will, there are a lot of ways we pay for things. And so some of the things that in this study we would like to implement, we're going to have to wait for state funding to do. And so sometimes it's going to be a process. And this is not a silver bullet situation like I mentioned before. This is a little bit more of a number of different things, almost like a list that we're just going to try to tackle as opportunity presents itself and as funding presents itself through a variety of different sources.
Absolutely, and one of the funding that you secured already, we should it's a more short-term solution. It's a ped improvement. We should have a marked pedestrian crossing for the Beaumont Center Circle by spring of next year, if not sooner. One of the things is just the weather limiting. So we're already working on that. That's something that you'll see immediately, and then other more long-term solutions will show themselves over the next year as well.
And you mentioned that was the one in front of the YMCA.
Yes, correct. So it will be very close to where the bike path that our Division of Engineering the design that they're working on. It will be right next to it. So it'll be a good connection of all different trails and types inside the development.
Which is great, as many people want. Moondance Amphitheater, which was a partnership with us, the Beaumont Commercialization, and certainly the Haymaker Foundation has been so generous to let us use that space, and people love it. And so one of the things we're trying to do is make it easier to access. Right now it's really hard, depending on time of day, to cross over into Beaumont, into that circle for Moondance. So the pedestrian improvement, a crosswalk will be great. One of the other things we're doing is looking at how to connect from Beaumont Center by the YMCA into the back of Harrods Hill Park. One of the new additions is some of the traffic enforcement on Snaffle.
Absolutely. Snaffle's one of the kind of a cut-through area, so it's it's a street that's a little smaller than maybe some of the others in the area, but it's still heavily used. And so in order to help promote positive driving behaviors, we're going to be installing a speed limit feedback signs. So basically, when you're driving on Snaffle, you'll be able to tell how fast you're going. If you're going over the speed limit, it'll let you know. And there's been studies to show that it does improve speeding when they're present.
It's true. A lot of those side roads in the area get high traffic because of this. People are cutting through and out, and so that's one thing we're trying to do to make it a little bit safer for those living in the Harrods Hill on that Snaffle Road. Another thing that we're doing is the utility boxes, doing some different wrapping, which is the first time we've tried that. Yes,
this is the first time, and it's one of the few times that they've been done in the east part of the country. So it's a product offered by our manufacturer, so it's guaranteed and proven, and it's supposed to be last for 7 years. So essentially we just put positive messaging, so pedestrian safety messaging on there. They're fun. They were designed by Bullhorn Creative, which did a Safe Streets campaign for the city, and we really like them. We've got a lot of good positive feedback, but it's just another reminder to be safe and pay attention as a pedestrian to your surroundings.
It's true. We've had a lot of pedestrian accidents, if you will, in Fayette County recently. So this is another way of trying to increase the experience for those. And people in this area really do walk. They walk to Kroger, they walk around to and from on intersections that are high traffic, just to remind people, hey, look up, look around, know where traffic is. And speaking of pedestrian access, one of the things we did was a bus stop, was trying to make it a little safer for those around here. So next step, we're going to talk a little bit about the bus stop and some of the community partners that have really joined together to make that a reality for this area. So I'm getting ready to introduce you to a good friend of mine, Rocky Mason with First Southern National Bank. And as we were working on this, you were noticing kind of the need for that as well.
Yes. I'm very familiar with the area here, with the bank being right out in front of the bus stop. And there were several people that were waiting for the bus at different times during the day. And I was concerned about their safety and also the concern for the elements when it was raining or snowing or cold. And just thought it would be a great investment for our community.
It was fantastic. Rocky reached out to me and said, hey, anything we can do? And I said, actually, we're working on that right now. If you'll be kind of wait a little bit. And so together with the Corporate Center Drive Corporation, we put together a partnership, and we went and said, hey, will you help us contribute to making this bus stop a reality? And so this bus stop really is half of you and half of the Corporate Center Association. We are so grateful for your support. And this is one of those great public-private partnerships, if you will.
Yeah, it was just a wonderful opportunity to have a community investment and share it with kind of a partnership. We're very thankful for the help of the city and for your efforts in making this a reality.
Well, thanks, Rocky. We're really grateful for First Southern National Bank. They contributed firsthand to make sure this is a reality. And we hope this is one of the bus stops. This was a new one with the blue horse, kind of emblematic of bringing the horse area to Beaumont, and we're really excited about it. We hope when you see it, you'll like it. I know Lex Tran with Carrie Butler was extremely supportive when we said we wanted to do this, of making sure it came to reality.